these dark times are so necessary. I spent about 15 years just completely devastated. So please take this as deep encouragement. Hello and welcome into Her Radiant Life. My name is Andrea Gal, and today I want to talk about the cocoon stage and the prison stage. It's a stage that, quite frankly, is not fun. It's disappointing, it's discouraging, it's dark, it's lonely, it's isolating. But there are things happening during that cocoon stage and during the prison feeling stage that are so necessary for us to fulfill our purpose in life, to fulfill our destiny, to soar. And this isn't just light, patronizing encouragement like, oh, it'll get better, don't worry, things will be fine. I understand completely what being in that dark prison cocoon stage is like. And I know that placating it with little sayings like, this is just part of the process are not only annoying, but sometimes quite discouraging and maddening. So today I want to actually show you examples. One is from the Bible and one is from nature about how these dark times are so necessary. And as much as they are not fun, as much as they are discouraging and sometimes feel so long and sometimes are actually quite long, we could not get to where we're supposed to be without them. So please take this as deep encouragement, not just, oh, things will be fine, don't worry about it. No, do worry about it, but understand the process. And that's what I'm going to try and share with you today. I have been through those dark, dark times. I spent about 15 years just completely devastated about my parents who passed away when I was 27. My parents passed away 4 months apart. It completely threw my world upside down for a very long time. And for a very long time, I felt like I was in prison. I felt like I was in a cocoon, in darkness. I felt like I was in the water, trying just to tread water enough to keep my head above. I really had no capacity to build the life that I wanted, to be the best friend that I could be, to succeed in my life in the ways that I wanted to. Even though I knew I was called for bigger things, I just couldn't do it because I was barely making it myself. I was barely getting through each day successfully for a really long time. And there were ups and downs. Yes, I had some fun things happen. Another thing that happened, which if you've watched my videos, is that then I also got married not long after my parents passed away. And then a year and a half into my marriage, he left. That was something I got over quicker than the loss of my parents, obviously, because it was such a deep and devastating loss to myself and my family. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that I understand why that had to happen. I'm not going to say that it was all part of God's plan for my parents to die, because I don't believe that. But what I do believe is that we do go through dark times and isolating times before we're promoted into the success and destiny that we're meant for. That I do believe. And some are darker and longer than others. But all of it, regardless of how long it is, or regardless of how traumatic it is, some form of it is required for success and for flight in life. So let's talk about Joseph in the Bible, and then let's talk about butterflies. I learned some really cool things about the whole process of metamorphosis that are so applicable to our lives. And I honestly feel like God shows us what life is like through a lot of nature. So the story of Joseph, I've really come to connect with the story of Joseph and his life, because I feel like some of it for me is very parallel to my life. And obviously, I'm not sold as a slave and I'm not put in jail. but my life has felt like that in some ways. There have been some things that have happened to me along the way outside of my parents passing away that have felt like deep betrayals, like Joseph's brothers selling him into slavery. Even though it was the fact that he was sold into slavery that was horrible for him, I feel like probably a bigger part of that was the fact that he was betrayed by his own brothers, by his own family, and that his father thought he was dead for all these years that he was going through his slavery and prison years. So let me just give you a quick run through of Joseph's life and story in case you're not fully familiar with it. Joseph is from the Bible, and he grew up having these dreams about his future, and then his brothers sold him into slavery to a man named Potiphar. And Joseph in that time did not get bitter. Can you imagine? That in itself is an amazing feat, not to get bitter towards the fact that his brothers sold him and betrayed him. But he did excellently. He was super honest. He did his best. He was excellent in his work, even as a slave. He wasn't like, I'm going to do the bare minimum because I am in such a horrible situation. He did his best. And because of that, he got promoted literally as a slave. He got promoted. I mean, that's an accomplishment. He was put in charge of Potiphar's entire household. And during that time, Potiphar's wife started to try and seduce Joseph, and Joseph said no every single time. He was not willing to go against his morals, go against God, even in that situation where he was basically still a slave. And so Potiphar's wife was mad that he wouldn't give in to those advances, and so she lied about him and told Potiphar that Joseph had assaulted her. And so he got thrown into prison because Potiphar believed his wife. That's another betrayal. I mean, Joseph was betrayed a lot deeply by people that he trusted and cared about. Because in that time that he was a slave for Potiphar, he was promoted there. And so I assume that their relationship had grown. And then he believed his wife over Joseph, and he was thrown into prison. Now, in prison, he could have been like, I give up. And I would understand that. I've been in places in my life where I just felt like, what's the point of trying anymore? Like, nothing's working out. These bad things keep happening, even though I'm trying so hard, even though I'm doing the right thing. I'm sure Joseph had moments like that, but he was still excellent. And in fact, he was so excellent even in prison that the guards put him in charge of other prisoners. Wherever Joseph went, excellence followed, leadership followed. He was being formed in those years to hold his future destiny and blessing. And he would not have had those attributes and those qualities to the level that he did if he had not gone through those things. Joseph went through 13 years of slavery and prison. From the time he was sold to the time he ended up interpreting a dream for Pharaoh, that was 13 years. That's a long time to be prepared. That's a long time not to give up on your dreams that you had, that you know you're made for more, and you know you're made for amazing things in the future. So 13 years of obscurity, waiting, hoping still, being excellent even though you keep getting betrayed and you keep getting forgotten or seemingly forgotten, being misunderstood and being turned on by a lot of people. But there was a pattern that we see. Joseph, in the situations he was in, which weren't good situations, got promoted and became a leader. During those 13 years, Joseph learned how to wait without seeing any hope for the future. He learned to trust during that time that he would still get to where he was meant to go. He learned to forgive his brothers and not get bitter towards them. And he also learned to hear from God, and he honed the skill of interpreting dreams, which is the thing that got him out of that slavery and prison when he ended up interpreting Pharaoh's dream. And then Pharaoh made him second in command of all of Egypt. And then you know what the beautiful thing is too? Because he had prepared himself, he had all the skills that were necessary for that promotion. He had everything he needed because of the 13 years of preparation. The slavery time, the prison time, the dark, isolated time. He was formed in the dark. You're not going to get formed in the spotlight on stage. That's not where the formation happens. That's not where the metamorphosis happens. It happens in the dark. It happens in isolation. It happens through discouragement. It happens in the down times where things are not going well, because that forms your character. Preparation looks like delay. I want you to not get discouraged. You can have moments and days where you do feel discouraged, but overall, do not stop dreaming. Do not stop believing that your future is going to be bright and beautiful, because these are the formation years. This is where it counts. This is where you have to hold on to faith and draw closer to God, because those are the two directions you could go. Joseph could have gotten bitter, not forgiven his family, not gotten closer to God, and then therefore been able to interpret Pharaoh's dream with his spiritual abundance and spiritual discernment. And then his life would have been completely different. But he didn't give up. He used that time to be excellent, and he used it to stay faithful and stay in faith. And that's hard. I didn't do that the whole time that I was going through the darkness, but I have refound that I was not perfect. I didn't go through the slavery and prison years perfectly or completely beautifully. I was grieving and I had trauma to work through. But in the end, I decided that faith and being excellent and believing in the future of my dreams was still the direction that I wanted to go, instead of getting bitter and unforgiving and walking away from God, even though I don't think I'll ever understand why he allowed my parents to die so young. It will be the first question I ask when I get to heaven, that's for sure. But I do also know that God can use trauma and things that you've been through and gotten through for beauty. That's the whole God will exchange the ashes in your life for beauty. He'll use those things. He doesn't just allow them to happen and then that's it. You're done. Those bad things just happened. No, he uses them for good in the end. And back to Joseph, he developed character, strength, discernment, spirituality, wisdom, and such depth and leadership. Not to mention the management roles and skills that he honed while he was at Potiphar's house. He learned how to manage people and manage a household and finances and all kinds of things because of the position he was put in there. And then he was ready when he was put in the position of second in command over Egypt because he had been prepared in the dark. Now I want to talk about the butterfly and the metamorphosis. It is such a beautiful representation of our trajectory and stages in life to get to greatness. As we know, butterflies don't start out as butterflies, they start out as caterpillars. Their main goal is to eat, eat, eat. They just eat as much as they can. They grow 1,000 times larger than they started out. They're gaining strength. This is, for me, the stage of my childhood and teenage years. They were great. I learned, I grew, I had dreams. I absorbed wisdom from my parents and had some amazing experiences with music and singing, some incredible places. That was my caterpillar stage. And you probably know what your caterpillar stage was. Usually it's childhood, teenagehood, etc. But not always. Some people don't have that smooth childhood that gives them that. But you've had a caterpillar stage. And then there's the chrysalis stage, where it hangs upside down, It creates this hard shell around itself, and it is in the absolute dark. And in that cocoon, oh my gosh, the things that happen are astounding. And they're astounding because of how parallel they are to what it's like being in the cocoon stage in life. In this stage, it's very still. It's quiet. It's isolating. It's dark. And on the outside, it honestly looks like nothing is happening. But on the inside, my goodness, it is controlled destruction. Complete and utter breaking down of the old identity and moving into the new identity. But the breaking down happens first. In that controlled destruction, it completely breaks down into a protein-rich liquid. The actual caterpillar breaks down into a liquid. It breaks down its complete old identity. It is no longer a crawler. It is no longer a caterpillar, a consumer of leaves and eating and growing in that way. And the huge part is that there are cells that have been part of the caterpillar the entire time that are actually cells for becoming the butterfly. And those cells laid dormant during the whole time it was a caterpillar. And now in this cocoon process, now those cells become active and alive. In the darkness, in the cocoon, a new identity is forming. And that identity is a beautiful, colorful, flying, soaring butterfly. Those cells are the blueprint for the wings, for the body, for the antenna, and for the ability to fly. It is during the breakdown, during the cocoon stage, during the darkness and isolation, where it looks like nothing's going on the outside, like your life could feel like right now, that these cells are activated. That's when this happens. That's when you grow. This is when the old identity breaks down, completely liquefies. And those cells that are your destiny, that are the person you're meant to be, that are the dream that you've had in your mind of who you're meant to be and where you're meant to go, get activated. And that is so exciting because as much as the darkness hurts and feels so oppressive, it's doing what it's meant to do. And it's interesting because the immune system attacks at first this whole process because transformation is threatening. Transformation is threatening. You've probably noticed the support system, which will relate to the immune system of the caterpillar. Your support system in your life may get very threatened by your transformation. And you'll see that because they'll start to attack you. Oh, I just love how parallel this is to life. How parallel the caterpillar to butterfly is to us starting at, our baby stage, our childhood, and growing and going into who we're meant to be. That whole process is parallel to the caterpillar and butterfly. If you're going to soar, you have to go through the cocoon stage. As awful as it is, as dark as it is, it's necessary. And then the next thing that happens is once that butterfly forms, its wings are wet and weak. And what it has to do is struggle. I can tell you, I have struggled. Oh, what a struggle to get out of the cocoon at that point. When you're ready, you know the struggle. If you have been in the cocoon, you might be at that process right now. You might just be starting the cocoon process, or you might be in it, or you might be ending it, and you're about to soar. But you got to struggle to get out of it, and it has to be in the right timing. It's a painful exit. And it is not released from the cocoon. It fights its way out. And the very, very interesting part of this is that If you helped a butterfly get out of its cocoon, it would never be able to fly. This is real. This is true. This isn't just something to make you feel better. It literally wouldn't be able to fly because the process of it struggling to get out of the cocoon is what pushes fluid into its wings to harden them and strengthen them so that they can fly. How beautiful is that? Awful and beautiful. That's kind of life, isn't it? The butterfly flies into its flying, colorful, beautiful, soaring destiny. That pain of the getting out of the cocoon creates strength for your future to fly. That resistance produces authority in who you are and what you're saying and who you're leading and your influence. This butterfly used to be a caterpillar that crawled in the dirt. And now it's flying and soaring and in its destiny, what it was always meant for. And if you looked at it during the liquefaction process in the cocoon in the dark, it would not look beautiful. It would not look beautiful. And that may be where your life is right now. But take heart that that's not the end of the process. There's so much more. You're going to come out of that and fly because your DNA, what God has put inside of you, activates during that time. It was always there. It just needed to go through that process to be able to soar and be prepared and strengthened for that destiny. It's not just an upgrade at this point. It is a complete breakdown and rebuild of identity. It is a complete purpose fulfilled. So Joseph, the butterfly, myself, you, we all have this in common. You have the beginning where you have these dreams, you have growth, you have input into your life. Then you have the cocoon or prison years where you're being broken down and prepared for what's ahead. You're in silence and darkness and isolation. There are people attacking you or betraying you. The old things that used to satisfy you or who you used to enjoy being, you no longer feel fulfilled by those things. And in that time, it's very easy to feel forgotten and misunderstood. But you're not forgotten. It's part of the process. And then there's those cells that were part of God's design for you from the very beginning that get activated in that season. And you become the butterfly, and then you struggle to get out of that cocoon stage or the prison stage. And then there's flight, your fulfilled calling, your abundance, your ability to handle the greatness that God has called you to, and a future that's full of beauty. So be encouraged during the process. It's not always fun. It's not always easy, but there is a purpose for it. And it's a lot easier for me to say this having just come out of the cocoon in my life. I feel like I'm just about to take flight. I'm starting to take flight. My wings are getting stronger. So yes, it is easier to say that at this point. And I believe that's why now I've started my YouTube channel. I couldn't have started it while I was in the cocoon because I couldn't have encouraged you at that point. But now I can encourage you. Looking back, I see the cocoon years. I see the prison years. I'm just outside of that. And so I can encourage you that there is beauty after, but you must stay in faith. Use the time to get closer to the Lord, to hone your skills, to be diligent in the things that you're in at that time, no matter what stage you're at. It's the choosing to be excellent where you are, even when it feels like nothing's happening, because it is happening. You're being prepared for the future flight. I hope that encouraged you. And as always, go out, be a blessing, and rise into your radiance. Much love. Thank you so much for being here. Bye.